One ringy dingy, 27,413.28 ringy dingies.
Hello, Your Eminence.
Hello, Your Excellence. What should we talk about today?
Well, I don't know if you understand this language, but I want to talk about hybristophiliac pedophiles, or it could be pedophiles hybristophiliac, with your vast knowledge of the English language. Which do you prefer?
Well, whatever you want, but there's a wonderful video put out by Craig Peterson that says something to the effect of, who's this person with so many titles? Meet Field's sister, Christine Marcy Hybristophiliac. And so if nobody produces that within 3 minutes, I'll go get it and post it in the chat room. Over to you, David.
Yeah, okay. Well, I was just heading for the ad because I think you'd done a lot of work yesterday, and I wanted to see what you'd done today. So let me just divert. So I haven't seen today's ad, whatever it says, or at least the latest incarnation. But going back to your sister, on the 22nd of October, our fans, if that's the right word, will know that your sister, together with Janet Reno, Jamie Gorelick, I prefer to pronounce it Gorlick, and probably Hillary Clinton, were in the Great Hall of Justice. What were they doing, Phil?
They were pretending like Al Gore had a brain, and they were celebrating the reinvention of government. Unfortunately for them, the United States citizens didn't commission them to reinvent the government. And even though most Americans that are awake wouldn't be happy with the government, it's still up to we the people to reinvent something. And so my sister Hillary Clinton, Jamie Gorelick, and Janet Reno, along with that fat hot air man Al Gore, who hadn't been seen much since we exposed him as a fluffball back before he was supposed to go to Oslo, Norway, to get some type of a pot prize, or maybe he was going over there to get some pies. I'm not sure, but we haven't seen much of him. We've seen very little of Peter G. Peterson. We've seen very little of Rebecca Roth, who apparently has upgraded herself from nearly 30 years to over 32 years of doing nothing. Not much news lately out of Karen Hudish, and I wonder if Peter Stantilli is still blowing warm air across the radio waves. Over to you, David.
Anyway, I propose that we consider the women in the Great Hall of Justice on the 22nd of October as creating a conspiracy, an insurrectionist conspiracy to start the overthrow of the government using some very interesting technology. We'll come to it. But as a group of hybristophiliac pedophiles, or vice versa, what crime was committed shortly after that meeting in the Great Hall of Justice that has all the characteristics of a murder by a group of hybristophiliac pedophiles? Over to you.
Does it have 3 letters? 2 of them are JR and the third one's B?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you tell everybody what it is, because I confuse people.
Okay, it's John Bennett Ramsey, or John Benet Ramsey, little girl, 6 or 7 years old, tortured to death in a live snuff film. That would be an allegation that these scumbags in the Great Hall of Justice on the 22nd of October can refute or rebut. They haven't done so yet, but we've identified them as the most probable candidates for the snuff film crew that went to the John Benet Ramsey house on Christmas Day of 1996, probably arriving around midnight, where the little girl had been tricked into opening the door because she thought she was going to get some presents from Santa. In spite of the fact that Santa only comes on Christmas Eve, and she'd been told that, but she told the mother of her little girlfriend that she'd been told to be silent because it was a secret, but Santa Claus was coming to visit her on Christmas Day. Now, what kinds of Santas were flying around on Christmas Day in 1996, Field? Over to you.
How am I supposed to ever get anything put into the chat room when you're incessantly deluging me with questions you've asked hundreds of times? What type of Santas? How about NORAD Santas? Anybody know what NORAD stands for?
Yeah, they should be getting into the chat room there, because NORAD Santa is a very interesting program that I believe was initiated shortly after the end of the Second World War, or maybe in the 1950s. And what it did, it was kind of a charming conceit, if you will, that the Air Force, the United States Air Force, and its Canadian counterparts would inject signals into the radar systems of NORAD and pretend that these injected signals was Santa and his reindeer and all the rest of it coming to bring presents to little children around the world. And it's a lovely idea, and I will guarantee you, if 99.9% of the people participating in that program wouldn't have any idea of the horrors that were unleashed by the planners of the murder, and that was a very skillfully planned murder of the little girl, or why they needed to murder her, because what they wanted was her father, John Bennett Ramsay, to stand aside, step down, or not blow the whistle on a modification to the PENREN program, that's the Pentagon Renovation Program, where they would, or he would have understood that they intended to install in the Pentagon elements of the SIPR network. And that is the Secure Internet Protocol Router Network that provides a level of security for the National Command Authority for the United States Department of Defense and the United States Department of State. And if you wanted to put together a conspiracy to overthrow the government of the United States, the only possible way of doing it, other than a frontal attack, which is basically ruled out of order, because you just can't take on the United States frontally, they had to go around the back, literally and figuratively, because I think we know that that's part of the sexual training or grooming of Barack Obama. Is that correct?
I think so, but I'm busy Googling something. Continue.
All right. So now, John Bennett Ramsay was the chief executive officer of Access Graphics, which was a wholly owned subsidiary of Lockheed Martin. And at the time of the murder of his daughter, Lockheed Martin had two people of interest on the board of directors in respect of the 9/11 attack. One of those, Norman Mineta, who was a Japanese that was interned during the Second World War after the Pearl Harbor attack. And the other was a woman by the name of Lynn Cheney, who wrote a book called Sisters that describes violent lesbian encounters in the Far West, or the Wild West. Now, I'm not an expert on I don't want to read the book, but and I'm not particularly interested in her particular brand of hybristophilia, but I'm fairly certain she was a hybristophiliac. Over to you.
Yeah, but see, I just barely got this published before you said over to me, when you should have kept it in your court. So you tell me what I just posted in the chat room, David, so I can tell you're not a bot.
What the hell is a bot?
Well, that pretty much proves you're not an accomplished bot. But anyway, what did I just post in the chat room?
Let me see. Agent 66.
No, I'm not. I'm Field M.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling up and down to see what you.
Well, start at the bottom and work your way up. Take your
Field M. Oh, I see. Yeah, there's a YouTube of Christine Marcy. Is that Craig's YouTube?
I don't know. I didn't watch it because it makes, when I go to YouTube or anything else, it gives us fragile, whatever you want to call it. It makes people's whatever, their reception gets sort of brittle. I forgot what they call it. I think they call it buffering. But I'm sniffing some crystal hot sauce right now, and it says Louisiana's Pure Crystal Hot Sauce. It comes from a agent lady down there who's 29. I'm not sure how much experience she has being 29, but all dangerettes are 29 by order of the King of Brunei. David, did you know that I'm getting real-time intel out of Brunei now?
I would expect it at the very least.
Yeah, but it's it's probably going to be good for Matthias Chang, and it's probably not going to be good for Najib Rajik. who took a $700 million bribe because they thought that Malaysia 370's true tracks could not be established when actually on the day that the Malaysia 370 supposedly went missing, it was never missing at all. Over to you, David.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks to After B, the Secret Internet Protocol Router Network, SIPRN, is a system of interconnected computer networks used by the US Department of Defense and the US Department of State to transmit classified information up to and including information classified secret by packet switching over the completely secure environment. Well, it's not completely secure. In fact, the server inside the toilet of the basement of Hillary Clinton's home was actually compatible with SIPRNet, and she was leaking information through WikiLeaks to ISIS or any other, Uncle Tom Copley and all, that she thinks would be useful in her campaign to lead the world towards a supranational government of world bankers and a feminist elite.
Okay, but hang on a minute. You just said supranational, didn't you?
I said supranational, or at least that's what I meant to say.
Okay, that's why I fingered you, because what you said, David.
Go ahead.
Well, just don't grab the soap, and you'll probably be okay. But David, look over there in the corner of the tub. There's some soap. Anyway, supranational is supranational, and it's important that we make sure we never leave anybody hanging. Half of your love is just not what I'm after. Part of your heart is not what I need. Anyway, Crystal Gale back in 1982 had a wonderful song called Don't Take Me Half the Way. Gee, I wonder if the Dangerettes could explain to us what that means. But anyway, over to you, David.
Right, so we know that the SIPRNet, we think we know it's been shut down because it leaks. In fact, it was leaked through to WikiLeaks. Allegedly, it's been detached from the system. But where did it go? And let's just think about who invented packet switching and why the inventor of packet switching, or at least his employer, would be in a very interesting position to front run all interesting trades in the capital markets. Well, packet switching is basically breaking a message up with a header, an address, and a timing sequence, sending it through a network where opportunistically it just finds the quickest way through to the network. It's reassembled at the other end to create the illusion of smooth speech and smooth images. Of course, if you can intercept that and insert with a tighter time schedule or time frame like Zulu time, you can actually introduce or inject news and synchronize the injected news with the script as it's read out by talking heads. Of course, I think they're called script kiddies, Phil.
Yes, they are. And I was going to say something very intelligent, but I couldn't think of anything intelligent. But our chat room is doing wonderfully today, and I hope that will continue. Let's see, Afterburners just hoping that Lance is well. Anyway, I'm not sure if Lance has an issue or not. Let's hope not. Lance is one. Well, actually, his name is Lance Danger, but that's not his real name. But we don't expose real sources. In the case of Lance Danger, he might hit me with his walking stick next time I'm over in his company, which will probably be the third weekend in May of 2017. David, do you recall what's going to happen in the third weekend in May of 2017?
Third weekend of May of 27. No, I don't, Phil.
Yeah, AV8, and what AV stands for is alternate view, and it's a conference put on by E&R Crane. And do you remember what industry E&R Crane used to work in?
Air traffic control.
You're not even close. Are you familiar with petrochemical engineering as it pertains to oil wells, fires, and wars in Iraq and Kuwait?
I think you're talking about petrophysical field, but sorry, I'm not correcting you. I'm just leading you gently through by the nose.
Yeah, well, I guess the last guy that tried to correct me was an FBI agent who died in the Trump Towers 2 nights ago at age 62. And his last name was Bush, and he had in his hand a Glock handgun with no serial number. Does that strike you as odd, or have you read the radio show ad?
Well, no, I didn't get to it. I read it yesterday, but I didn't get to it today.
Well, you've missed about 80% of it, but go ahead.
Okay, so because I would like to end, well,
Thank
when we
you.
get to the end of the show, a very clear invitation. No, correction. What I want, Phil, at the end of the show is to send over the internet an invitation to Donald Trump to invite you and me and anyone we want to go to the Trump Towers, wherever he wants to set it up, and explain to him how to get off the kill list of Hillary Clinton, which I think should interest him. Because if he doesn't understand how she's going to set up an accident, either for him or a member of his family, then he's going to walk into a trap that is really too horrific to contemplate for that family. Now, do I like Donald Trump? I don't think so. I think he's a bloviator, but I don't think he's stupid. And I think he does understand the extent to which the billionaire class of Americans has walked into a trap that is almost, it's basically underlines what J. Edgar Hoover said when he said the individual is handicapped by coming face to face with a conspiracy so monstrous he cannot believe it exists. And this is a conspiracy that involves the four levers of manipulation, which is sex, fear, greed, and power. And in the particular case of sex, this is pedophile sex. Pedophile, same sex by hybristophiliacs who may not have started off in life like that. Well, all children are innocent, right? And then most children can be manipulated by their parents, and then evildoers who get associated with their parents. And many of those children end up in a state that the civilized public would actually recoil in horror, but I digress. So let me just put in the first paragraph, and I see it's 11:19, so we're heading towards prayer time. Let me just put in, yes, good, it's gone in. Abel Danger claims that the Clinton Foundation has placed the Trump family on a kill list. I'll repeat that. Abel Danger claims that the Clinton Foundation has placed the Trump family on a kill list and invited pay-to-play donors to bet on the time of death of family members while maintaining plausible denial of any role in decades-old Clinton murder for hire. When do you think the Clintons started killing people, Phil? Over to you.
I got a mouthful of apple turnover from Gwen's Bakery across the street. They started killing people in the 70s in Arkansas. Do you want me to find out exactly who the first person they killed were? But one of the notable early kills was the boys on the track. Watch how soon Jack Mack puts up the cover of the book, The Boys on the Track. And they were a couple of 15-year-old kids that went out to poach rabbits one night with a .22 rifle, and they came upon the scene of a Arkansas police car in the middle of the woods where two officers were about ready to do something very rude to an underage girl. And the young boys, being real Americans, even though they were only 15, they yelled at the cops, "Hey, stop doing that." And so the cops killed them both. One of them got beat over the head with a telephone handle, the handset of a telephone in a phone booth. And I forget how the other guy died. But these two little 15-year-old kids went out to shoot a couple of rabbits. They ended up interrupting a drug drop where one of Barry Seal's aircraft was going to fly over a bunch of woods near Little Rock and drop some duffel bags filled with cocaine and other treats in the woods. And the little boys happened to interrupt that. And the reason why they needed to kill the boys is those cops weren't supposed to be there. The cops were actually ripping off Bill Clinton's drug friends. Over to you, David.
Yeah, that's right, Field. And I think we can now be very confident that the Clintons have always had handlers. British intelligence, of course, way back to when she became a protester. And I think Bill Clinton Didn't he go and live up a tree and defecate on the ground and to draw attention to the fact that he didn't want to get called up in Vietnam War? Was he a draft dodger?
No, he was queer. He played saxophone and his crank was bent. But David, it's prayer time, so let's get away from queers with bent cranks and get into Psalm 91. Are you ready to go?
I am.
Okay. Every radio show at 22 minutes after, we say a prayer for people that have been murdered, abused, raped, impregnated, or surgically destroyed or manipulated by members of their own government, which is very common here in the United States. But anyway, we always like to honor people that have been killed by their own government so that we might help be part of God's network to expose and destroy that. And today I went looking for something that would indicate to everyone's satisfaction how we can get away with talking as clearly as we do and yet not be killed by George H.W. Bush or Hillary. And Hillary just found out something within the last 72 hours about the impotency of her hit teams. This quote is actually Psalm 91:7. Then I'm going to read the entire 91st Psalm. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it'll not come near you. Okay, it starts out this way, Psalm 91:1. Now, David, in case you're not listening, that's 911, which is 9/11. It says this: He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely He will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and your rampart. You will not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but will not come near you. You will only observe with your eyes and see the punishment of the wicked. If you make the Most High your dwelling, even the Lord, who is my refuge, then no harm will befall you, no disaster will come near your tent. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. You will tread upon the lion and the cobra, and will trample down the great lion and the serpent. Because he loves me, says the Lord, I will rescue him. I will protect him, for he acknowledges my name. He will call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life will I satisfy him and show him my salvation. Now, that's biblical. In practical manners, everyone knows that on November 10th, I got a legal document, and here it is 8 months later, and that thing has not affected me as much as some of the hangnails I used to have when I was in middle school. Now we're going to have 90 seconds of silence for Colonel James Sabo, who was murdered on the 22nd of January of 1991 under the orders of G.H.W. Bush. And this is a picture of Colonel Sabo, and that's the cover of Gadget Bent. And Colonel Sabo's name also appears right here above this Arlington National Cemetery headstone. And Colonel Sabo will also be in both Lemon Squeeze, that's book number 3, and War Bride, book number 4. And we'll continue to tell the truth about Sabo and how he was killed under the direct orders of George H.W. Bush. But for right now, let's have 90 seconds of peace and quiet and bring honor to God. I believe that's 90 seconds. So, David, our silence for Colonel Sabow and other people that have been destroyed by members of their own government, for instance, John Bennett Ramsey, the SEALs, and the other 31, excuse me, I did poor math. There were 38 men and a dog named Bart upon the SEAL Chinook, which was Extortion 17. They were killed with the approval of Obama and Secretary of Defense Panetta, four-star general and complete jerk Martin Dempsey, a three-star general who was out of theater on that night because he wanted plausible deniability. His military call sign is G as in Golf 87, diagonal or backstroke OPIE. And the fifth name that we have, and we're not saying anything about Gary Reed or Admiral McRaven, but the fifth name that we are publishing is Thomas Rickard, Rickard. And those people all signed off on the murder with discretion aforethought and malice aforethought of 38 men and a dog named Bart aboard Extortion 17. And of course, other Americans that have been zapped by our cowards in Washington include Pat Tillman. And if anybody's within 100 miles of the Twin Cities on the 19th of August, which is a lovely date, I've published some threat warnings that include 19 August, and now it turns out that Donald Trump will be speaking in the Twin Cities on the 19th of August. Now, David, who do you think arranged that, me, Trump, or
God? You and God.
Well, no, God did. But anyway, thank you for that vote of confidence. Over to you.
Okay, so just going back to the murder for hire services of the Clintons, they can certainly be dated back to the tainted blood scam in Arkansas, where she and a apology for her husband arranged to collect blood from prisoners at $7 a pint, mix it up so it's a pretty toxic brew, because those prisoners in many cases were infected with all kinds of diseases, ship it off to Connaught Technologies or Development in Montreal, owned by Paul Martin, the former Prime Minister of Canada, and have it turned into a plasma and then ship it off to Africa, basically drive the Hep C and the HIV plague that has killed, I don't know, hundreds of thousands or millions of people. So when these scumbag Clintons talk about Donald Trump disrespecting a vet with that Khan family thing, incidentally, did you know that a vet had given Donald Trump his Purple Heart as a gesture of his trust in him? Field, over to you.
Okay, which vets gave Donald Trump a Purple Heart?
A vet, I forget the guy's name, but he gave Donald Trump a Purple Heart, his Purple Heart. I mean, the Purple Heart awarded to the vet as a gesture of respect. Over to you.
Yeah, you're not going to die right now, are you?
Well, I'm trying to hang in there.
Okay. Well, anyway, did you get a cup of hot water before we started the radio show?
No, if you'd like, I'll stop now and go and get one.
Yes, it has to be warm or hot. So just let me know when you get back. Make some noise or sniffle, or perhaps you could do that normal bodily function that Hillary Clinton likes to do in a competitive nature, sometimes using matches to light them. So, David, while you're gone, I'll just sit here and I'll talk to the chat room. I see a picture of a Clinton, Sotero, a pair of bushes, one with pink socks. What a faggot. And then that guy that his brother was a peanut farmer, and this guy was a draft dodger. I'm talking about Jimmy the draft dodger Carter from the Annapolis class of 47. He, like Alexander Haig, decided the best place to be during World War II is either at West Point or Annapolis, so he didn't have to get shot at or come home in a box like the guy who bought the 1940s. Oh, Jack Mack, do you have a picture of that 1940 Studebaker? There's a 1940 Studebaker 2.5 miles north of here that's got World War II killed in action plates on it. It also has a 1940 Alabama plate because the original owner was a U.S. serviceman who bought the 1940 Studebaker Champion on the 4th of June of 4th of June of 1940. He joined the military. He died in 1942. He came home in a box, meaning coffin. His parents were so proud of their son, and so such a feeling of loss at his passing when he got killed for the bankers and phony baloney people in the government like Prescott Bush, who actually worked with the Nazis and British intelligence during World War II, endangering U.S. and British servicemen. And of course, his penalty for that was he's probably roasting in hell right now, where the enemies of God do tend to go if they don't acknowledge their sins and turn away from their sins and seek atonement from the only power in the world that can grant that, and that's God through his son, Jesus Christ. David, are you back?
Yes, I am, Phil.
Well, let her rip.
And I'm drinking out of a mug with Gadget Bank on the side.
Oh, well, wait a minute. Let me just get, could you repeat that? Denise was trying to wash her hands of me, and go ahead and tell Denise now what you just told me.
Denise, I'm drinking out of a mug with Gadget Bent on the side.
Oh, great.
She says very good. In fact, she's encouraged me to go pick up a mug and show it to the people in the chat room, knowing that there were either 10 or 12 of these mugs ordered, and the majority have been given away, and they will never be ordered again, not by us. In fact, I've been thinking about these books we write to gain value for people that are kind enough to buy our books. Here's the mug you're talking about, David. I don't know what number this is, but do you have a mug at home, Denise?
I'm not sure.
Oh, well, guess what, David? Guess who's getting this mug?
Denise.
Yeah, because I gave her a mug, and she thought so little of that, she immediately pawned it off on you. But anyway, now she's got her mug back. In fact, the whole world can watch her receive her mug with great appreciation from her husband of almost 2 months.
Thank you.
Oh, me or him?
You.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you. David, just so you don't get to be a blowhard or a bloviator, she was thanking me, not you. But anyway, I'm glad you're drinking out of her mug. And I hope that someday all of us within the sound of my voice and yours will be drinking out of the mug of human kindness, which is exactly why we were created, to have fellowship. David, over to you.
And that's why we do what we do. And I was just thinking of that little worm, Hillary Clinton, and her apology for her husband. They probably think they're immovable objects. Well, they're about to encounter an unstoppable force field, which is Able Danger and the team behind it. And I think these symbols are very, very powerful, because I just sense that the tide is turning our way. So I'm very, very confident that we're going to triumph. And I think we will triumph in a very amusing and entertaining way, and basically have justice for many hundreds of thousands of victims that have been suffered at the hands of the Clintons and British intelligence over the last 25 or 50 years. Able Danger claims that prior to 9/11, Clinton aides used Serco's 8A protege companies. Just to remind people, the 8A protege company program was run by Field Sister Christine Marcy from 1998 to 2001, where she was able to deploy maybe thousands of these 8A companies to attempt the overthrow of the United States government on 9/11, but I digress. Clinton aides used Serco's 8A protege companies to set up SIPRNet servers in hotel suites. SIPRNet, just to remind people, stands for Secure Internet Protocol Router Network. And Secure Internet Protocol Router Networks run on packet switching technology invented by the Brits. More specifically, a guy called Don Davies at the National Physical Laboratory, where Alan Turing worked for a while. And Don Davies, around 1984, went to work in the city for the British bankers, and probably David Cameron's father, Ian Cameron, the late Ian Cameron. And what was he doing? Well, he was providing security systems, or secure systems, for the British bankers in the city of London.
Oh.
Now that was, of course, secure internet protocol router network basic technology, that of packet switching, which allowed the bankers in the city of London to isolate their frauds, including front running, from surveillance in the United States. And here's a very, very clever idea.
He got exposed.
I called Jeffrey Epstein a pedophile pimp. Have you got any quarrel with that, Field? Over to you.
No, I don't, but I just mentioned to Denise that today in our radio show ad, we have a photograph and an article regarding Paul Ryan being exposed. And I think what Paul Ryan was exposed for doing was taking money from the Clinton Foundation. So would one of our adoring fans somewhere in the world that recalls what it is I published about Paul Ryan today, would you please post it in the chat room to refresh my memory? And also, I've challenged Maranatha and Afterburner to try to beat me in finding where in the Bible it says that God dwells in our heart and he considers our bodies to be temples in honor of him. And so funny, I just came across doom in the concordance, but he doesn't want us to be temples of doom. This is interesting. Dwelling, place in which people live. House in Scripture usually refers to where God lives. How lovely is your dwelling place? That is where maybe Maranatha and Afterburner might look. Psalm 84:1 and 1 Kings 8:30, and I'll look there too. So, David, what was your question?
Do you have any quarrel with the phrase or the description of Jeffrey Epstein as a pedophile pimp?
No, because he used to take girls as young as 13 down to his island, and he also took some people, including some Jewish attorney who I can't remember. I think his name's Edelman. Prince Andrew, who's that fat oaf that's married to the even fatter and greater oaf, the redheaded, whatever her name is, Duchess of Cork. Bill Clinton made about 40 trips on the Lolita Express, which is a Boeing 727 privately owned by the man with the egg-shaped penis, which is Jeffrey Epstein. And if anybody doubts me, and if anybody's offended, don't be offended at me. If that stuff wasn't on the internet, I'd never know that Jeffrey Epstein, billionaire, has an egg-shaped penis. I just wonder if it's like a sparrow egg or like a turkey egg or a vulture egg, because, Black Lives Matter, and so does size. David, over to you, David.
You mean he's got the same disorder as Bill Clinton?
No, Bill Clinton has Peyronie's disease, which means he has an item that's supposed to go straight, but his either goes left or right, which is, in golf, they call that a slice or a something else. But see, the reason why Chelsea had to be sired by somebody other than Bill Clinton is two reasons. Number one, you can't push a rope. And number two, when he was an adolescent, he had mumps. So he thought he couldn't sire a child right up until he sired a mulatto named Danny. Somewhere in Arkansas, there's the son of a black prostitute whose name is Danny Clinton. And watch how quickly a picture of Bill Clinton's only biological progeny shows up. The guy's name is Danny, and he sort of looks like Bill Clinton, but smarter. Over to you, David.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Phil. So, Para 2, today's post, just to finish that off, set up SIPRnet servers in hotel suites allegedly booked by pedophile pimp Jeffrey Epstein to compromise key actors in the first live broadcast mass snuff film in human history. Now, folks think that phrase is something that Abel Danger came up with. They should check the name Dr. Thomas Barnett, who upset his audience when he described 911, or the events of 911, as the first live broadcast mass snuff film in human history. Now, to put on a live broadcast mass snuff film, it requires a certain amount of planning, because you need to synchronize the script with the camera shots or the money shots. So a lot of people needed to be brought into New York, and for that matter, Washington, D.C., to help stage the first live broadcast mass snuff film in human history. And generally, those are divided into two groups of people, one more numerous than the other. There are the crisis actors who are expected to read a script and present to the public what the public is supposed to believe. and then a smaller group with some degree of technical sophistication, which is the camera crew. In the case of New York, the attack of 9/11, there were two camera crews of interest, one run by one of the No-Day brothers and the other by the other. And the camera crews that took the picture of the image of the plane appearing from behind the ATT tower and going into the north face of the North Tower, it had this amazing shot, the money shot, because it was pointed at the impact point 1.25 seconds before the plane appeared, which for a random movement of a camera is really extraordinary. But of course it wasn't random, it was directed at that point because the party maneuvering the camera knew what the impact point was required to be. The other brother was round by the south face of the South Tower, and he pointed his camera 13 seconds before impact. So quite interesting brothers that have now disappeared, or maybe someone can find where they are right now, because we need to haul them back and put them in a court and charge them with conspiracy to murder or film a snuff film. And of course, to transmit those images, it was necessary to get hold of the packet switching technology originally invented by Don Davies and put it in the hands of British bankers. Because what you want to do is to inject the news, which is the event where it's supposed to look like a civilian aircraft was run into the North Tower and the South Tower. Of course, that didn't happen like that. And at the same time, transmit the interpretation of who was behind the attack as quickly as possible, even actually before the attack itself, so the public, through the mainstream media, would be alerted to who was the suspect, which was Osama bin Laden, or more specifically, the bin Laden group. Now, why do we know that that was a script? Well, General Alexander Haig, the late General Alexander Haig, was interviewed on Fox News and asked who he thought was behind it 14 minutes after first impact, 2 minutes before the second impact. And he said, well, I don't want to speculate. Then he proceeds to speculate. He said, we know where to look. It's either the Palestinians or the bin Laden groups. Now, the bin Laden group owned Middle East NetJet at the time, and one of their planes was tracking United 93. So this was a very sophisticated, well-timed, military-grade operation, and we'll come back to that in a minute. So now, let me put paragraph 3 into the chat room, because time has a nasty habit of racing by. And
That's okay, David. We have eternity, so don't worry about it. Take your time.
Yeah, that's right. 3. Able Danger claims that FBI Director James Comey, and just think about this, he is a former director of Serco's dirty banker, HSBC. Now, how dirty is HSBC? Well, it's beyond dirty.
David, your
can
phone's
you just
ringing.
hold off a minute?
Of course,
Phil?
I always cover for you. Go away and come back when you want to. Meanwhile, I'm checking the weather, and according to my weather, it says that there are showers occurring in Plum City right now. However, just in case my phone has been hacked, pardon me while I go to the window and check. I'll be right with you. In fact, I have a weather lady coming in now. Is it raining outside? No, it's not raining, so I don't have to go to the window. And David, are you back from the phone yet?
Yes, I am.
Oh, good. Why don't you pontificate?
Okay, 3. Able Danger claims that FBI Director James Comey, a former director of Serco's dirty banker, HSBC, and I'd pause there to ask rhetorically how dirty people think HSBC is. Well, I'll give you some idea of how dirty it is. It was set up in 1865 in the London office by David Cameron's great-great-grandfather. And HSBC has been funding the drug trade ever since, even right up to the present. It paid a $1.9 billion fine into a fund called the Department of Justice Asset Forfeiture Fund, created by Field Sistra and Eric Holder in 1984. Well, it didn't pay the money in. They created the fund in 1984, and they created another horror, which is the database for the missing and exploited Children, the National Center for the Missing and Exploited Children. So it's very obvious that they were preparing a bank-funded pedophile entrapment network to lock in extremely wealthy people through fear and blackmail. Now, British intelligence, whether you consider that an oxymoron or not, they're smart enough to realize you don't want to mess with millionaires, because millionaires are two a penny nowadays. There's a whole bunch of millionaires up here in British Columbia who are dollar millionaires because the price of housing has been inflated. You only really want to play with billionaires because billionaires are people of influence. Really, a billionaire is a two-legged banker, because he or she has to place those $1 billion into a whole array of investments, just like an investment banker.
Hey, David, while you're talking about billionaires and millionaires and other things that don't matter because the love of money is the root of all evil, not money itself, do you mind if I go over to Gwen's Bakery? Because I understand she just sold the bakery and the new owners are there.
Oh, no, please do.
Okay, and Denise will be here if you need some reinforcement. Just call her name. It's spelled Denise. And are you familiar with her last name?
Well, I guess, is it conventionally McConnell now?
Of course it is. But anyway, she'll be in charge of you. I'll be right back. I'm going to go over and see if I approve of the new owners at Gwen's Bakery.
Okay, thank you, Denise.
All right, David.
Right, so Able Danger claims that FBI Director James Comey, a former director of Serco's dirty banker, HSBC, has linked DOJ Pride feminists to Serco servers to track victims through hotel bookings and scheduled flights and sell snuff film images of crashes in Zulu time. Because what the SIPRNet server allows you to do is to sit inside a presidential suite or the guest suite of a Sheraton or a Marriott hotel and watch in real time the flight path of an aircraft on which is traveling a high-value passenger, which could be Donald Trump or a member of his family. Now, I'm sure Clinton is not so crass as to threaten Donald Trump directly, but she's stupid enough to allow a leak on her server that makes Donald Trump aware that he and members of his family have got onto the Clintons' kill list. And she's not smart enough to remove the trace that will allow forensic economists like Phil McConnell and various other players to track back and reverse engineer the originator of a conspiracy to crash a plane in Zulu time that had to be done on the packet switching networks invented by Don Davis at the National Physical Laboratory I'm not quite sure when he invented it, but it went hand in hand with the invention of the cesium fountain clock, which is the clock that gives the world access to Zulu time. So it's kind of scary, or it should be, for the citizens of the United States to understand that the technology that allows people like Clinton to communicate with the National Command Authority and her friends in DOJ Pride is actually controlled by British intelligence. And British intelligence is able to launch at any time what are known as man-in-the-middle attacks on the National Command Authority of the United States and create the impression that the American military and the FBI are incompetent, when in fact 99% of those groups are entirely competent, but they don't realize that their chain of command has been compromised by some really, really, really dirty people. Now, going back to that meeting in October the 22nd of 1996 in the Great Hall of Justice, where I said earlier that these women, including Phil's sister, were pedophile hybristophiliacs. Hybristophiliac means taking pleasure in the pain associated with the partner in some sexual activity, and vice versa. The children, of course, wouldn't have taken any pleasure in the satisfaction of their abusers, but apparently the abusers took great pleasure in the torture and murder of children, including JonBenet Ramsey. And I don't take any pleasure in describing what they visited upon this little girl's body, but I think it's salutary for the audience to get an idea. It looks like she was attacked by a taser, or two tasers, which fires a couple of needles, I think 3 centimeters apart, with a voltage of 50,000 volts between them. That might have stunned her. She was garroted by a cord that appears to have been tied in a manner familiar to special ops trained by the British. And her skull was fractured almost right around. And there were signs of brutality around her genitals. So no one deserves that. And of course, there is either, I think the word is extreme carelessness, which translates into gross negligence, by the FBI in not hunting down the killers of little JonBenet Ramsey, because there was a ransom note which indicated she had been kidnapped. And any time there is a kidnap of a child under the age of 16, it's immediately a matter for the FBI, because that child might have been taken across state boundaries and outside the reach of the city police, or in this case the Boulder police. So from the moment that it was known there was a ransom note, the FBI should have been called in. But a woman by the name of Detective Aunt with the googly eyes was called in, and she was instrumental in manipulating this crime scene. I think the technical term is spoliation, to remove evidence that would eventually lead Abel Danger back to the perpetrators. On the ransom note, there is an initialism, SBTC, and lots of people have speculated about what that might be, and we're just as entitled to speculate about what it might be. And if one takes the opening phrase, hello John, we represent a small foreign group, something to that effect, and it's signed off victory, which is reminiscent of Hillary Clinton's passion for Saul Alinsky, victory over who or whom, SBTC, S period, B period, T period, C, no period. So what might SBTC stand for? Well, how about Small Business Theatre Club? It was a piece of theatre. Now, whether there was a camera there recording the agony of the little girl, I don't know, but there could have been. And apparently in the business of pedophile snuff films, films like that are extremely valuable and can be transmitted over SIPRnet, secure internet protocol router networks, to be shown to various people who may need to be impressed into doing whatever the custodian of those snuff films wants them to do. Now, the custodians of the snuff films, of course, is in an extremely powerful position. And if you're going to recruit and place someone in a high position to be a custodian of a snuff film archive or portfolio, they require special training. And there is a woman who was trained as a custodian of intellectual property, I believe in particular of child pornography, and her name is Michelle Obama. And she was trained at Sidley Austin, which also employed Bernardine Dawn, which seems rather unwise, because Bernardine Dawn was the leader of the Weather Underground, and she invented the three-finger salute to describe the activity of the people who stuck a fork in the belly of Sharon Tate in the alleged Charlie Manson murders. And Bernardine Dawn became the mentor with Bill Ayers of Michelle and Barack Obama. And she still is. And she would be described, I think, by Barack Obama as a member of his friends who are chosen carefully to avoid being seen as a sellout, which include Marxist professors, politically active blacks, and structural feminists. And I remember asking Field what the hell a structural feminist was, and it doesn't sound very pleasant. If you ran into a structural feminist, I don't know, how would you tell? Field, any ideas?
Yes, probably they have brassieres that have structural steel in them to hold up their surgically enhanced accoutrements. That's my opinion, David. Do you have any reason to think that I'm off base?
Well, I think off base is an unfortunate metaphor, but I think, no, I agree with you.
Oh, okay. Well, you can agree with me all you want. I got to go get my email I sent to Donald Trump, because there's 6 or 7 people that have asked for it.
Excellent. And how's the bakery?
Oh, it's good. The new owners, it's a man and a woman. The woman's name's Jennifer. Did you catch the guy's name? Crispy? Oh, apparently his name's Crispy. I hope it's not Krispy Kreme. Which reminds me, David, and when the radio show is over, go look at the image of a coffee bar. It's about in the top 10, and it's disgusting. But anyway, what is not disgusting in our pursuit of these dirtbags? I'm checking for my Donald Trump email. When I find it, I will remove the 3 Donald Trump email addresses and post the letter verbatim that I sent him, unless I said something disparaging about David Hawkins, in which case I'll delete that and post the rest of it. David, over to you.
Well, at the moment, David Hawkins is not discouraged, because I think we are going to succeed in this hunt. And here's the 4th paragraph.
Speaking of the hunt, I just found the email. Are you ready for it?
I am ready.
It's from me, Field McConnell, to 123 Trump addresses at trump.org. Trump.com. Could be trumporg.com. You just never know with me if I'm spinning fact or fiction. But wait a minute. Let me put... David, hang with me. Oh, wait a minute. I just found a check from agent... Well, the agent in question, I got to cover up his or her name. And I better cover up the name of the city. Someone sent $25 in a postal order. Your book was sent out today, and we apologize for the delay. If anybody orders any books, it's absolutely to your advantage to send the email ordering books to shakedevilhandbook@gmail.com, and that's because that goes to both myself and Denise, and we are a 2-person operation when it comes to the publishing of the books. She writes them, and Craig Peterson does the images on the front, and I put my name on it, so if somebody stops a bullet, it's me. Okay, I'm going to put the camera on this email that I sent to Team Trump. First, I'm going to cover up part of it so you can see what you, hopefully, in fact, I'm going to turn around and ask if the camera is positioned. Can you see what I've got my camera on? Okay. It says, from Field McConnell, the title is Able Danger, Paul Ryan's Wife Exposed by Wisconsin Supporter of Trump. I just pushed a button on my copying machine and it scared me because I thought I was having jitters, which I'm not. Okay, now I've got to cover up, and I will send copies of this to those people who asked, but I will also hide the email address. It says, Team Trump, Clinton Foundation U2 801076 used in Katrina and Haiti murders. by cloud-centric crime scene investigation. Then there's the picture. The title is the old title to the radio show. The picture is Hillary in an orange pantsuit, size 64, we understand. 64 on the top and 23 on the top. 64 on the bottom, 23 on the top. And then it's signed, best regards, Field McConnell, 715-307-8222. Now, for the people in the chat room who asked for a copy, the copy is coming to you within several minutes. I just have to go to the chat room and see who ordered them. David, over to you.
Okay, so the fourth paragraph, United States Marine Field McConnell offers to show Donald Trump how to remove his family's names from the Clinton kill list and bring the pay-to-play donors to the Clinton Foundation to justice. Now, there's very interesting donors, institutional or individual donors to the Clinton Foundation that people should pay attention to. The top per country individual contributions to the Clinton Foundation is the Ukraine, and the second is England. And that would be consistent with the very smart idea of going after billionaires. And incidentally, to be a client of Jeffrey Epstein, you have to be a billionaire and not a millionaire. And what he promises you is that he will be able to place your investments very wisely and make you very wealthy. Well, you're pretty wealthy if you're a billionaire already. And you're certainly someone with influence. Whether you deserve that influence or not, that's totally immaterial. But Jeffrey Epstein is only going to give you advice that makes you wealthy if he knows you won't weasel or squeal on him. So what he does, or has been doing apparently, whether he was doing it while he was in jail, I don't know. Christine Marcy, who basically invented the private jail system in the United States, would have made him, given him some pretty good facilities. What he does is he books a suite in an elite hotel room for his mark or his target.
You just said, David, I got to correct you. You said he books a suite in a hotel room.
Okay, he books a room in a hotel suite. You prefer that?
I would say he books the suite in a hotel.
All right.
Because the suite's bigger than a room.
I'll concede that to you if you wish.
Okay, I've got a very important phone call, and everybody will want to stay tuned. Can you take over, Denise? I'll be right back, David.
Okay, so what he does, he books a hotel room for a mark or a target who has to be a billionaire. And the billionaire arrives in that room and he's given various opportunities. One, to entertain himself with a child, or to use a SIPRnet server, a secure internet protocol router network server, and follow an aircraft as it goes off on a scheduled flight with a high-value target, and participate in the hijacking of that aircraft through remote control and the Boeing Honeywell uninterruptible autopilot. And with his or her colleagues in other suites, in other hotels, primarily the Marriott and Sheraton hotel chain around the world, they can start betting on the time of death of the passengers, which would include the high-value target. The argument being, if you're betting on the time of death of someone, you're not actually responsible for them dying, and you're not actually choosing when they will die. You're basically betting that you know more about, or you're guessing better, more accurately, when they're going to die. And it creates a pool of money. Now, 911, I shudder to think how big that pool of money would be and where it would be held so it could be concealed. Well, I'll tell you where it's held. It's held by the signatory investors in the Carbon Disclosure Project in London that was launched by Tony Blair on the 4th of December of 2000 and now represents over $100 trillion of assets under management. You can hide a lot of money in $100 trillion, including the $1 billion owned by or in the custody of one of the billionaires that was targeted by the pedophile pimp Jeffrey Epstein and the Clinton killer lists. So then, once you've got those individuals enmeshed in what is basically a pedophile entrapment network, where images are taken of what they did to the child, let's say hypothetically, although that was done in her home, or we assume it was done in her home, what was done to John Benet Ramsey by these individuals, they are owned for the rest of their lives, because they would know, if any normal human being saw what they'd done to the child, they'd be hanging from a lamppost by their genitals. And apparently in the jail system, pedophiles have to be kept separate from the rest of the prisoners, because most of the other prisoners are heterosexuals, and quite often not perfect parents, but they do love their children. So this kill list is made available, I would argue, through the secure internet protocol router networks to the kinds of people who are vulnerable to blackmail, who have participated and traveled through these elite hotels, like, for example, Michelle Obama in the Westin Hotel in Beijing, which I believe was $8,000 a night. Now, Michelle Obama doesn't have any class. Her mother has even less.
Hey, David, guess what?
What?
You didn't read the radio show ad, and yet when you say that Michelle Obama has no class, my brand new contact in Brunei, who, well, you'll just have to read the radio show afterwards, but he made the comment that a fair amount of the princes and princesses in Brunei, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Bahrain have no class. And David, you know the good news we've been waiting for on the ranch?
Go ahead.
I think I just got it, but you go ahead and continue your train of thought, and then I will discuss the phone call I just broke away for. And I'm also sending the package involving Trump in Wisconsin to these people: Agent 66, George S., P, H, and Cherokee Wolves. And there was one more. Oh, yes, and I'm going to throw in a side order of Afterburner. And I would ask all of you people not to, there's 5 of you. No, there's going to be another one. I'm going to send it to Denise, too. And I would just ask you people not to abuse each other's emails. And I printed right here, I'll show you. I printed from Field McConnell 2, redacted. And then I said, sorry, I hate to redact Donald Trump's email address and his attorney's email address. But can you imagine how many emails they must get a day? So whether we like them or not, that's not the issue. We know that Hillary is Satan incarnate. And David, I'll turn it over to you while Denise and I chat about the phone call I just had.
Okay, thanks, Phil. So that's a wonderful photograph. Now, I can't tell whether it's photoshopped, but of Michelle Obama squeezing her package with the phrase, "I bet Melania can't do that." That's a fantastic image. Like I say, whether it's manipulated, I don't know. I don't care. But I do know that Michelle Obama would have all the qualifications to serve as an intellectual property lawyer to protect the intellectual property rights in a pedophile snuff film portfolio held by the British in the United Kingdom. So now, what do we got to do? I think all we got to do is just alert Donald Trump to the high degree of probability that members of his family have been put by the Clinton Foundation on a death list, and signals will reach him directly or indirectly, which will tell him if he wants to make sure that his children and his family survive over the next month, he's got to sabotage his own campaign. Now, I believe he's an intelligent man, and it's hard to credit his stupid remarks. So the question is he being extorted to make those remarks to sabotage his own campaign? Or is he really stupid and indifferent? Well, I'll let the listeners make their own decision. My personal decision is the only reason he'd make those remarks is to sabotage his own campaign and get the Clinton scuzzbags back into power so that the Clinton Foundation can maintain its control over the billionaires of the world through a combination of pedophile entrapment and blackmail and the prospect of great wealth through insider trading or front running on the international markets using the Zulu plot in the custody of the United Kingdom National Physical Laboratory, which up to about a couple of months ago was nominally controlled by Serco, but now appears to have been handed over to the academic community, and the academic community would be controlled by the University Superannuation Scheme in the United Kingdom and the Teachers' Pension Fund, the largest private pension fund in the world, in the United States. So I think we got him over a barrel, and I would like you and I to, is it you and me or you and I? You and I to be invited by the Trump family to a place of their choosing, but I feel like a holiday, so I think Trump Towers would do me fine. And we can explain to the family how to get their names off the Clinton kill list and bring the donors to the Clinton Foundation to justice. May they roast in hell. Over to you, Phil.
Well, we've already done it, David. And as long as you said roast in hell, I'm going to expose my biblical ignorance because I can never remember if it's Hebrews 10:26 or Hebrews 10:36, but I'm going to go out and suggest, and then I will tell you about my phone call. So hang in there for another couple minutes, David. Hebrews, anybody remember where Hebrews is? It's after Corinthians. It's after Ephesians, which is one of my favorite books. I'm looking really hard for Hebrews, and I'm not finding it, but I will. I don't give up that easy. In fact, when my mom died, I read some stuff out of Hebrews, and that was specifically, no, it wasn't. It was Romans 8:28 through 39. But I'm looking for Hebrews. This is funny. Oh, well, it's not funny. It's ironic that I am in here every day, and I took this long to find it. I believe that it's Hebrews 10:26. And so I'll go there first, and we'll find out if it's 10:26. Yes, it is. If we deliberately keep on sinning after we have received the knowledge of the truth, no sacrifice for sins is left, but only a fearful expectation of the judgment and raging fire that will consume the enemies of God. On the strength of the conversation I just had with the person who anticipates buying a ranch and an aircraft for our collective ministry, I will say it's my opinion that as of 2:13 on Thursday, the 4th of August, that God's enemies include Christine Marcy, who I've identified to Dunford, Putin, and Trump, Hillary Clinton, who I've identified to Dunford, Putin, and Trump, and George H.W. Bush and his crime family, which are part of the CBS crime family team, CBS standing for Clinton, Bush, and Sotero, which is Barry Obama's real name. It's in the back of my hearse. If anybody that has a picture of the side of my hearse could post a picture with Barry Sotero's name in the back of my hearse, please do so. And David, do you mind if I just take a split second to try to calmly talk about the phone conversation I just had?
No, go ahead, Phil.
The individual who I've been talking to for over 2 years regarding the possibility of buying a ranch just called me, and I had to step away and take the call. In fact, I love precision, so let me find out. And it's going to take me. Oh, Bucky just sent me. Thank you, Bucky. Bucky is so polite, just like most Able Danger people are. Bucky, who's our agent, Barry M. Hall, he just sent me something. That's a good day for our team. And what I mean by our team is the global commenters, the little people, the people that God loves, not the people that try to destroy, impoverish, frighten, and kill the little people that God loves. From Bucky, I have this. I know the show is going on, but she will be transferring to hospice today. That's his mother. Uh, Bucky's real name is Brian Bangert. He and his brother, Scott Bangert, are the brothers I never had, earthly brothers. I have more heavenly brothers than there are pieces of sand on the sea. And when I went to bed 2 nights ago, I was thinking today might be a very big day uh, for our effort, David, because I knew that today there was a meeting taking place in New England. It's now taken place, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I also knew that there was a meeting taking place in Milwaukee. Both meetings have now concluded. The meeting in Milwaukee for Scott and Bucky's mother has gone the way we thought it would, that she is going to give up on the medical remedy and rely on God for comfort and peace and go home. And what I mean by go home is go to her house for hospice. And of course, that leads to her heavenly home, I am confident. Regarding the other call that I anticipated, the meeting on the East Coast has concluded. There is now another meeting taking place, which indicates very good news. And I'm going to leave it at that because I really need to be respectful to people. But I will do this. If I find out the news is as good and dramatic as I think it is, I will do a solo radio show as soon as I get that news. And I will not be specific about the conduit through which the blessing may be coming. And I am going to go out in faith now and in hope and in belief and say that I do think that the ranch that we've so looked forward to for several years, I do believe that Denise and I will be making a trip to Dallas soon. We may be making a trip out to the 6 states called New England, somewhere in there. But anyway, it's quite a day, David, and I'll turn it back over to you. Somebody just put up a picture of Agent 66 by the hearse. So David, I know that you probably wanted to get on to other things. So why don't I turn it over to you for your last words or any comments you may have?
Well, it's exciting times, Field, and I think this is a very interesting lever. If we can persuade, encourage Donald Trump to recognize the danger of being on a Clinton kill list, and that he owes it to his family and his voters and the people he hopes to benefit if he is the President of the United States, to move very quickly to protect himself and them from the Clintons, because there are people up here in BC that say they'll walk out on any conversation with me and they're friends of mine if I describe Hillary Clinton as a psychopath. That's unfortunate, so I've accommodated them because I don't pretend that they should understand the amount of work that we've been doing over the recent years, maybe 10 years. In fact, she was named in that original filing in North Dakota, right, as one of the defendants in a class action suit for damages for the wrongful death of nearly 3,000 people, together with your sister. So we really haven't moved our position very much over the last 10 years. And our position, we've never been rebutted, refuted, or sued for libel, right, Phil? Over to you.
Yeah, that's right. And unlike when you say that's right, Field, when I say that's right, David, that means I listen to you and I understand what you said and I concur. Something I haven't mentioned to you personally, and I probably have mentioned it to the Able Danger community in some way, some fashion, but I've been thinking of putting an affidavit in either tomorrow, Friday the 5th, or maybe I'll hold off and think about it over the weekend and converse with you, David. But I think it's time to put in an affidavit which ends the pussyfooting around and gives Trump, Putin, and Dunford every bit of legal ammunition they need to either incarcerate my sister for treason and or to make it official. I believe it's already the case that Obama has no power, but I think they need to share that with the people of the United States of America and our allies as soon as they can do so without creating pandemonium in the streets. But I don't want anybody to think that I'm thinking of putting an affidavit in based on the conversation I just had regarding the ranch. And David, as far as our, meaning you and I and Abel Danger, helping Trump keep his family out of danger, we've already done that, and you would have seen it if you'd seen the entire radio show ad today. And what I just sent to I sent it to Maranatha, I sent it to PH, I sent it to Cherokee Wolves, I sent it to Afterburner, I sent it to George S., and I think I sent it to somebody else that asked for it, but I sent the Trump letter, and in the Trump letter was the radio show ad, and in the radio show ad, I was announcing that, among other things that I announced in a 75 image radio show ad, I announced that Donald Trump is coming to Minneapolis on August 19th. And even though that skips right through your years, David, August 19th is the date that I previously published for two things. For Hillary Clinton not to get on board an airplane, and for Bill Clinton to expect justice. David, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. Well, very many people are wishing me wishes for my birthday on the 7th of August, so I do thank them. And I've got to move on, Phil, but I think we've got momentum, and watch this space, so to speak. Over to you.
Okay, well, this is the last show before your birthday, so happy birthday on the 7th. And at your leisure tonight or tomorrow, give me a call, and if I learn more about what's going on in the East Coast, I believe I will have a definitive answer. And David, you're excused, so do you want to hang up on me, or do you want me to hang up on you?
Well, it's a birthday privilege, so let me hang up on you.
Okay, my hands are up, and everybody sees them.
Right? No cheating now.
No cheating. And Denise is not as fast as you are, even though she has her hand on my mouse. Hey, David. Well, she didn't have her hand on my mouse. I just fibbed. But, you know, I'm allowed to fib to David because he's been fibbing to me since December 6th of 2006 when he told me he was smart. But anyway, it doesn't matter the relative smartness, IQ, all those things. What matters is the condition of our heart. And I want to thank, if Afterburner is still here, and I see that, I almost hate to say this. In fact, I won't say it, you know, because I've actually been given authority by God to fight this battle any way I see fit. And sadly, one of the ways I saw fit very early on was to use a lot of poetic license in some things involving comparative anatomy and pastel colors. And I've apologized to Christians many times. I've apologized doubly to Christian females many times. But it looks like we're coming to the end of this battle. And if you want to know what the battle is, it's the battle of Ephesians. It's the battle of good versus evil. And if Afterburner is still here, and she is, Afterburner, you had a piece of scripture that I saw briefly, and I think it was in 1 Corinthians. But if you're still there and you can put up that piece of scripture, or if anybody else saw it, it was about we being temples where God resides. And while we're waiting for that to show up so I can read it, I just found out, or I didn't find out, look, I had it marked in green ink. You're my witness. See the green ink? Mm-hmm. Let me read this about what love is. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish ways behind me. Now we see but a poor reflection as in a mirror, then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three things remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. And I want to dedicate those thoughts to everybody who needs them at this moment. But I also want to pledge that as my additional MOS. And there's only one person. There's a lot of you who might know what MOS stands for, but there's only one person who called me today with the news we've been waiting for from God for a long, long time. And now I'm going to go back and look and see. I want to see if Afterburner has sent me that. No, she hasn't. Declan, thanks a lot for what you said here. VIP pass in the kingdom of love and light, valid anywhere and anytime to go where he needs to expose these mongrels. Thanks for posting that, Declan. When I was invited by Malaysia to go down to Malaysia and explain what happened to their airplane, at least 4 people who care about me suggested strongly that I not go, and that maybe if I did go, I would be harmed or taken prisoner or worse. And I said, well, those are possibilities if I'm going on my own volition or if I'm going through my own ego. But I said, if I'm going because I'm supposed to go, I can walk into a trap and I'll walk out of the trap. No problem, because God will go with me. Well, he did go with me, and now it looks like we're coming to the end of a mission, and maybe a new mission will begin. And if that is true, I may well know something in the next 24 hours, and if I find out anything significant about the new mission in the next 24 hours, I'll do a brief radio show to fill in people with what I'm allowed to share. Beautiful chapter 13. Okay, but oh, I know what you're talking about, 1 Corinthians 13. But does anybody know, Afterburner must have left. If anybody were to scroll up and look for a scriptural reference from Afterburner, and I'm doing the same thing, she did post where we should be looking. Oh, earlier today. Okay, I'm doing this in real time. And if somebody else finds it before I find it, I think Denise is paying attention on hers. And so between our chat room and myself, sooner or later, we're going to find out exactly what we need to find out. Wow, our chat room's been busy today. Okay, let me see. I think I'm going to be on it here within 30 seconds. Let's find out. Okay, I'm not there yet. I'm looking for something from Afterburner. I might have to give up on this if I don't find it, but if I'm meant to find it, I will find it. Okay, I see the prayer at 11:22, so must have been after that. Oh, I think I'm getting down close to where I may find it. If anybody else finds it, I hope that Denise will get my attention. I just saw a picture of a 40 Studebaker go by. All right. What an interesting show today. I'm reviewing everything here as I go by. I hope I haven't gone by it. Oh, you found it. What's it? What number? What book does it say? 1 Corinthians 3:16? Okay. I knew it was there. I didn't know where. Apparently it's 1 Corinthians 3:16. And I'm going to turn to that now. It says this. We're talking about 1 Corinthians 3:16. Don't you know that you yourselves are God's temple and that God's Spirit lives in you? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him. For God's temple is sacred, and you are that temple. Then it goes on to say something very important. Do not deceive yourself. If any one of you thinks he is wise by the standards of the age, he should become a fool so that he may become wise. For the wisdom of the world is foolishness in God's sight. As it is written, he catches the wise in their craftiness. And again, the Lord knows the thoughts of the wise are futile. So then, no more boasting about men. All things are yours, whether Paul or Apollos or Cephas, or the world or life or death, or the present or the future. All are yours, and you are of Christ, and Christ is of God. I'm going to end this. In fact, why doesn't somebody put up the big red button, and I will end it on your call, not mine. And if I have the luxury of saying something, I'll try to say something before I see the big red button, but if the big red button appears, I will honor it. Your gifts make room for you. That's in the Bible. Interesting. Once again, I mentioned that I'm writing Lemon Squeeze now, and just so more of you can understand how our mission is not just for David and myself, it's for all of us. Anybody who has any type of content of interest that's factual between, say, March 9th of 1991 and May 27th of 1991, if you email me, fieldmcc@yahoo.com, I will actually place those snippets of information into the current book, which is Lemon Squeeze, and I'll place them as they come in. I will not adjust them. In other words, if somebody, let's just see who's in the chat room. Wait a minute, I've lost control of the chat room. Oh, here we go. Wow, we got a lot of people in the chat room today. Well, let's just name some of the people. I'll name every third person from bottom to top. Vanishing Point in Eastbourne, New York. Straight Shot, Randy Town, who sends a lot of images. Patty Windsor, NWAIAM. That's the name I didn't want to say before because he's got an agent name that is offensive to some. Maranatha, which reminds me, I've got a postal order here and it was sent today. Let's see, going up 3 from there, we have Jill, 3 more, Jameskin, 3 more, Griff Eagle, 3 more, George H. 3 more is going to be whoever's above Franco. Oh, that's me. So let's go back to Franco and then bracket me with Duke McTurk, Desert Pete, David Kernan, Bob O'Dowd, Afterburner. All of those people and everyone in between them is encouraged to send me content that's truthful content of factual stuff, and believe me, I will make sure I'll check it myself. But I want to demonstrate to the world how we as a group can write a very good indictment against the CBS crime families, Clinton, Bush, and Sotero. For those who don't know Sotero, that's Barry Obama's real name. So I'm calling for the big red button, and I hope somebody will put it up. Do you see anything? Are you in the chat room? Is it there? Oh, I don't have it. Okay. Well, just since I don't have it, can you give me a 3, 2, 1, push it, and I'll push it on your 1.